All right, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the In the Flat podcast. I'm your host, Tony Kill, joining this special Sunday after the Heisman edition of the podcast by Jordan Schultz. So, with the Heisman being announced, Army Navy having a thrilling game, the transfer portal still being a thing, we thought we'd bring you the latest happenings in college football. So, let's jump into it. So, maybe we start with the Heisman first. So, I don't think it was a surprise, but Caleb Williams won the Heisman yesterday. I say he had a majority of the votes. He had 544 first place votes. The next best person was Max Duggan with 188 first place votes. So, in all, Caleb Williams had over 2,000 points. Max Duggan 1,400, 539. Stetson Bennett 349. Then right behind them was Hendon Hooker at number 5. Bryce Young at number 6, which tells me a lot. I don't think Bryce Young had even a good enough season to be in the top 10, but here he is, number 6. Blake Corum, number 7. Michael Penix, number 8. John Robinson, number 9. Drake May, all the way down number 10. Those last couple games really killed him. So, any takeaways here for you? Any surprises there, Jordan?
No, I mean, surprises past the top five. I mean, I feel like better players should have been put into this Heisman top four. They should do more than just top four. They go to New York, I think it should be top five, maybe, top six, just to have some more people there. But I feel like everybody knew it was Caleb Williams. Once they released that top four, who's going there, it really was Caleb Williams, or who are you going to pick?
I would have picked
I mean,
Max Duggan, but that's just me.
But I mean, you're not. I would pick Max Duggan too, but there's three. Caleb Williams had the most passing yards, passing touchdowns. He just was the best quarterback, even in that group.
And he's the only quarterback that is not in the playoff. So
yeah, he said that in his speech. Okay, I saw it.
Yeah, I did see that. Yes. Good. He needs to use some humility there in his speeches. Yeah. No, I mean it was no surprise. I mean at the end he had probably the most, I would say, most spectacular plays. So he's the one that like got you really watching. He like a Patrick Mahomes type plays that you can't believe he made. Sometimes I feel like he was inconsistent. And I think but I guess anybody in college is going to be inconsistent. That's what they're learning and going through the motions here. But I just feel like, for somebody to talk about the Heisman, the last few weeks felt like he was all about the Heisman. But again, that's just my own personal criticisms. He definitely deserved it. I would say out of the four that were there, him or Max Duggan should have won it. So I have no problems with him winning it in that regard. Because I don't think C.J. Stroud or Stetson Bennett played well enough to win it on their end. So, honestly, I don't think Stetson Bennett should have been in the top 4. If Hendon Hooker didn't get hurt, he probably would have been the 4th person. But I think they penalized Hendon Hooker for getting hurt in that last game, or that game before last. All right, so that's the Heisman. So again, no surprises. We'll see if Caleb Williams can go back to back. Usually, if you win it the first year, you kind of struggle the second year. So we'll see what he does next year, if he can back it up and get back there next year. All right, let's talk about the only game in town outside of the FCS games yesterday was um, um, the first overtime game in their 123 meetings. I would have thought they'd been in overtime at least once beforehand, but it was crazy. And Army topped Navy in double overtime to win the rivalry game for the 5th time in 7 meetings since 2016. So really, really good victory here. There was a lot of interesting plays since this was an Army Navy game. I think Army kicked the field goal with less than 2 minutes regulation to force overtime. Scored a touchdown in his first play of overtime, and then forced a fumble on Navy's second overtime possession before kicking a field goal to win for the 5th time in 70 games, as I mentioned. So pretty good contest. These games always are fun, whether that's because they're the only game in town or because there's so much into it, and the rivalry is so great, the crowd is so good. So any takeaways for you from the Army-Navy game?
More of the fact that 3 passes were completed this whole game, kind of, we're so used to these top teams right now, USC, Ohio State, putting up massive passing yard games. I mean, even LSU putting up 400 yards, I mean, 28 passing yards for Army total, and then 25 passing yards for Navy total. I'm surprised Army won this game just because you know Navy had 259 or 259 rushing yards, where Army only had 125. Navy had more total yards, almost 130, actually 131 more total yards. So, but it's one of those games where they don't have a quarterback, so they kind of just let's give the ball to the running back and see how many times he can
Yeah.
break it for a big play, and that's what showed right here. And I mean, at halftime, I think the only Army threw 5 passes and completed 0 of them. I think it was all rushing yards. I'm pretty sure right before halftime, Navy pulled away over 100 rushing yards. Other than that, the game was kind of just hand the ball off and see what can happen, kind of thing. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So,
Navy was 1-4 for passing, and Army was 2-12. So
hey, more passing than we thought might happen in this game. So good for them to get those free passes out of the way. Yeah, but no, interesting game as always. I think it was a fun game, and it kind of just it's always a little sad when this game's over because I mean the regular season is over for college football. Um, and so now we're into the bowl season, and so obviously we talk about bowl season here in the next few weeks. But bowl season is always a little different, just because so many people are opting out now. It's always you don't quite get the full team playing in those bowl games anymore. So it kind of wraps us up for the regular season. So good overall season 2022. A lot of surprises, a lot of fun, thrilling games, upsets. Good performances. So good way to end the season there. All right, let's move on to some coaching news here. So, first up, I'll start with this. I don't know if you saw this, but Bobby Petrino, the ex-Arkansas Louisville coach, Atlanta Falcons coach, has emerged as a candidate for the Texas A&M offensive coordinator job. um,
there you go.
so he just finished his third season leading Missouri State of the FCS division there. He's been to the playoffs there in FCS with them for 2 of the past 3 years. Um, is this the right hire, you think, if he ends up being the hire for Texas A&M?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's more. I think it's Jimbo being like, I'm still gonna do the play calls. I'm just gonna hire a guy to be next to me. But 100, I don't know, 100%. I feel like hiring an FCS coach, head coach, that had, if it was like North Dakota State or South Dakota State's, head coach, yeah, that's a good pickup. I think this Missouri State team has had its ups and downs and hasn't been consistent. And I think all the stuff behind Bobby Petrino and what the baggage and luggage he'll bring from his past times, at Arkansas and things like that are going to be a thing to look at. And I think Texas A&M doesn't need that right now, especially with all the Jimbo talk.
Yeah, no, if he had been like, if they had been like one of the top offenses in FCS and doing great things, and maybe this would be different. But you're thinking of someone who didn't even make the playoff this year, so they've started to go back a little bit to where the first couple of years when he was there. So maybe he's getting his own players, and it's not working out well for him. Obviously, he's been a good offensive coach in the past when he was at Arkansas, and a little bit at Louisville, but I just don't know. Like you said, he's taking on his baggage for a non-guaranteed option. I don't want to talk about the guy's age, but he's 61 years old. He doesn't seem to be ahead of the game as far as offensive play calling at the moment. He's probably kind of stuck in his ways of what he's seen, how he's seen things done for years. I'm just not sure if this is the right way to go. Me, I would try to bring in a bright, young offensive mind that can do some innovative things on offense with the players that you have. You're gonna have some of the top players in the country at Texas A&M. Bring someone in that could really take advantage of how to use those. I just think he's picking an old friend and to be his offensive coordinator. That way, he could still have kind of control over play calling. But again, that's just my read on it. But we'll see if that actually happens. I think he probably get enough backlash. He'll probably hire someone else, but we'll see. All right, let's move around to the rest of college football here. Stanford. Let's talk about a little bit of coaching hire here. Stanford has hired Sacramento State Coach Troy Taylor to the Cardinals. So obviously, Taylor succeeds David Shaw, who stepped down on November 27th after 12 seasons. So Taylor, he's a Sacramento native. He's a former Cal quarterback, so going to the rival Stanford team. He led Sacramento State to his first ever Big Sky championship in all 3 seasons he's coached there. And he produced the program's first ever undefeated regular season this year in 2022. They earned the number 2 seed in this year's FCS playoffs, where on Friday they lost to Incarnate Ward in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. So he seems like a pretty well-respected coach. And honestly, this is going to be a hard job to find someone for, because this kind of program is kind of left in shambles with the amount of transfers and people going pro off this team. They're going to be left with a lot of rebuild here, and I think he is obviously, come in and rebuild some programs like Sacramento State. So he's seen it. He's been in the California area, so he knows recruiting well. So it seems like he's someone that can come in and really take this job seriously and get it turned around, and maybe not someone that's going to look to leave because that's his home area, and he's not going to look to go to bigger fish. He's at 54 years old. He's probably looking to make this a job he stays at for 10 to 12 years. So what do you think of the hire there, Jordan?
I think it's a good hire. I think, like you said, he had a good time, coaching time at Sacramento State. It's in California, knows the recruiting ways of California, can do all that, and I think Stanford's a hard school. I think it's probably the hardest school to recruit. For in the big, the group of five or Power Five schools. It's probably the hardest school to recruit at. So, someone that can get those California recruits, and build something new and different at Stanford right now that's not, what we've been seeing will help. And I think this is a good hire. And I think, no, I don't think anyone else, unless they were a California school or they coached in a California school, could do it. And I think this is a big, huge, big pickup for Stanford. And I think it'll work out. I don't think they'll be as dominant as they have been, sometimes. But I think this guy can really turn a program around, especially the last couple of years, what we've seen.
That's right. His offense has been pretty dynamic there, where it's not going to be the same Stanford you're used to, pounding the rock like Jim Harbaugh wanted, and using tight ends. It's going to be a spread offense, and it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's the best offense for what Stanford has, but he might have to adjust a little bit. But I think bringing some nice explosive offense to Stanford, I think, will be something to get maybe fans more excited to go to the game and watch it. But I don't know if Stanford will ever be a football place. It's definitely more academic. With football just being kind of nice to have. So, but I think he can. I think he can do some good things there for sure. All right, let's move around to some various news items here. So, I don't know if you saw this, but the kind of realignment wheels keep spinning here. So, this time it could be a new addition of a conference to the FBS ranks. So, there's currently 10 schools from the ASUN and Western Athletic Conference that are in early stages to combine to create a football-only league that will make the jump from FCS to FBS sometime in the near future. Now, this new league will consist of Stephen F. Austin, Utah Tech, Eastern Kentucky, Austin P, Alabama Christian, Southern Utah, Tarleton State, Eastern Kentucky, Central Arkansas, and North Alabama. I will say, this is some spread out conference there, Utah to Kentucky. So, but I guess if they're playing each other today, I guess it won't matter. But also Utah Grande Valley is starting to join the group as well. So, like 2025 season or so is what they're looking at. This is interesting. I guess it makes sense. You probably make more money. You can have more opportunities there, especially with the 12 team playoffs coming. If you have a good enough season, one of these teams, you could potentially make the playoff with a good enough season there. So, what do you think here about the new conference?
I think especially it's a good choice. I think it's better than the schools that join and then join a conference. I think making your own conference really helps. I think it'll be
You're
They
all
could
play
be,
even playing field, right? Yeah.
yeah, you've played them already, most of them. So it'll really help with that, and I think it'll be really easy to transition over and keep the teams good and be able to compete. And like you said, if they have a good season, then you have a team that's in that 12 team college football playoff, and so I think it's out of everything that you have a lot of teams that just solo come up. I think this is a good thing for and is it for college football, and it's good to see that there's some schools that are thinking that we should move up, but not just ourselves, and bring like as many teams as you named up with us, and make it a conference over just a team in a conference.
Yep. No, for sure. Yeah, I think it's a good strategy. I mean, it's better to, like you said, the alternative where you go into a conference playing teams that are already kind of set and have been recruiting in that upper echelon conference, which gives you a disadvantage. Here, you come with these teams and you even playing field, and then you can slowly kind of transition to the FBS before you guys start playing other schools. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. All right. Let's talk a little mix of NFL declarations, recruiting news, and transfer portals. There's a mix of things out there. So, actually, before we start, I don't know if we brought it up in the last podcast, but Jeff Brom has been hired as the Louisville head coach. Um, Obviously, leading Purdue the last few years to some nice success, made it to the Big Ten championship game this year. So he's back to his home state of Louisville. With that, the number one recruit that Louisville had was the number one running back for 2023, and that was Ruben Owens. He decommitted from Louisville after the coaching change happened, and he is now committed to Texas A&M. Sure, there's no NIL deals committed, there for Texas A&M. Uh, I don't know why anybody would join Texas A&M right now, especially the way they use running backs. But hey, I mean, if you're paying well enough, I guess I would join too. But yep, Ruben Owens is going to be joining that class as the number one overall running back for 2023. So good pickup there for Jimbo. Kind of big loss for Louisville. Louisville, was really looking to make a splash, but Scott Satterfield left, and now they're kind of left picking up the pieces. But I think Jeff Brom will do good there. Any thoughts on Louisville in general, or this change?
No, I think it's a good pickup for Louisville. I think it's a guy that knows Louisville, knows the system, knows how to deal with the adversity, and I think he really, I know I forgot what coaching position he was at. He was when he was at Louisville, but you know he likes he likes Louisville. He likes the people. I heard, and he's happy to go back. And I think it's a good pickup, and I think it'll really bring. It's that time when you transition to a new head coach, and it's you start losing things because that old head coach recruited these players, so you're going to lose these players that are decommitting things. But I think he can bring some baggage with him as well, like a lot of coaches have been lately.
Yep, sure. All right, let's move on to a little bit of our recruiting news. Deion Sanders picked up his first, top 300 recruit on Saturday. He picked up the commitment of four-star running back Dylan Edwards. So Dylan Edwards is probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest, running back in the recruiting rankings. He had been committed to Kansas State, decommitted, committed to Notre Dame, and then decommitted from Notre Dame and committed to Colorado on Saturday. Um, Part of this is because he played in Deion Sanders' leagues. He has some youth leagues, and he played with him, and his dad and Deion have a good relationship. So I think it was kind of no-brainer that he was going to join him. What I thought was funny, though, is because obviously as a Notre Dame fan, I kind of followed Notre Dame recruiting rankings, but Dylan Edwards had this huge gold chain for Notre Dame that his dad got him. They had all these posters everywhere. They just took pictures of Marcus Freeman. The next day they decommitted. That's the craziness of the recruiting world these days, especially with coaches jumping in left and right like this. So, but a good pickup here from Deion Sanders. Hold on. Not sure what the music came in. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but it popped into my end. So sorry about that. We're not advertising for whoever that was. So I'm sorry. I blame ESPN for that because I was looking at the recent article on Dylan Edwards. So sorry about that. But no, I think it's a good pickup for Deion Sanders. I think he'll pick up more people because people want to play for him. He's a charismatic guy, and there's a lot of spotlight on him right now, and people and especially recruits love the spotlight. So how do you think he's going to do overall, like recruiting wise? Do you think he's going to be able to pick up some more of these kind of commitments there?
I think so. He already has 12 since he started. Um, so I think that's he's just going to start getting more. And this is early signing day hasn't even happened yet. And we know a lot of people, like you said, a lot of big star recruits like having a show. So I could see a lot of flips coming. I think Deion Sanders is going to pull a lot of good 4 or 5 star recruits, to come to his school. Um, I think the biggest thing with Deion Sanders is that he knows how to treat his players correctly, and with him being, not a typical coach, like Nick Saban and Jimbo being super old, not being super relevant outside of just coaching, is a huge thing for him, and I think he's going to be able to pull crazy amounts of people, transfer portal, just recruits because of his personality and how he treats his players and how the videos we see when he was at Jackson State and all that. So I think Colorado's going to get a lot of good players out of the Deion Sanders signing as their head coach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're already getting dividends from it now. I think you're right. I think the transfer portal thing will be key. Right off the bat, because they really need to be more successful. They only have one win last year, so if they can show improvement this year, the recruits are going to be even more excited to join him next year. But if they really struggle this year, then he's going to be a little bit of trouble there because it's hard to win in Colorado if you don't get the recruits. So, um, but I think he won't have a problem with that. So I think they'll do pretty well, and they'll give some competition to USC on transfer portal and all that. So I'll be interested to see how that kind of works out over time. All right, let's talk about some NFL declarations here. Penn State's leading wide receiver Parker Washington is off to the NFL. He announced that on Friday on Twitter. So he was their leading receiver this year with 46 receptions with 611 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's the second player for Penn State to declare for the draft, joining cornerback Joey Porter Jr. He did miss the last 2 games of the regular season due to injury, but he was explosive for them in many other major games that they played this year. So yeah, they'll have to reload on that wide receiver position next year. Another big one was Notre Dame defensive lineman Isaiah Foskey. He's declared for NFL draft. So he's the all-time sack leader for Notre Dame. So again, kind of Notre Dame kind of saw this right on the wall. He was actually going to go out last year, but decided to come back to try to help Marcus Freeman and his team go towards the playoffs. So good season for him this year. So you're looking. I'm thinking probably for him second or third round is where he's kind of thinking he's going to land. For Parker Washington, I'm thinking again second or third round there as well. So we'll see what these guys end up at. Any thoughts on those two declarations there, Jordan?
No, I think it sucks for Penn State. I think that with their offensive woes, I think losing one of their top receivers is going to really hurt them. But it's either you play another year in college, you get hurt, and then you're kind of you never know what's going to happen in the NFL, or you just go. I think Isaiah Foskey is it's his time. I think he's a 4-year player from Notre Dame, so I think it's a good sign. I think it's a good time for him to transition out, and I think Marcus Freeman is just going to reload and have a position player in there ready for that position. But those two probably uh, big losses for both teams, just all around.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, with today's transfer portal, you should be able to kind of refill. We'll talk a little bit. I think Pitt State's in on one of the top, if not the top wide receiver in the portal, so they should be able to reload. I know Notre Dame's in for some D linemen as well, so I think that's probably where both of these teams are going to reload with some veteran presence in the transfer portal, which makes a lot of sense because it's a lot harder to reload from recruits because they're so young; they have to be developed. So We'll see. Last bit of news here before I jump into everything transfer portal. There's a lot of transfer portal, so we'll try to keep it all straight. But Michigan's Mozzie Smith pleaded guilty to his misdemeanor gun charge with sentencing scheduled for December 29th. Um, so he pleaded guilty Thursday. Um, he had, I guess, what happened is he had a loaded firearm in his vehicle, um, and the penalty is he could carry a maximum penalty of 1 year incarceration in jail or $1,000 fine. Um, so you got to hope if you're Michigan, it's just a probation type thing, which I think it will. They said he's going to play because he's been forthcoming and he's never considered to be a threat. And the reason he had the gun is because people are starting to recognize him. He said, and he wanted to protect himself. So, um, man, this would be a loss for Michigan though, because he's one of their best defensive linemen there. If wasn't able to play in their playoff game now. Any thoughts before we move on to transfer portal on this one?
Not really. I think it's not smart in the sense that you are in the limelight. You are the you're recognized. NCAA knows you. College football fans know you. So just be observant and know that it's not the right thing to do right now.
Oh, sounds good. All right. Uh, we'll start off first transfer portal with Texas A&M. So Chris Marshall, he's the 5-star wide receiver they had is from their number one recruiting class last year, has joined the transfer portal. He joins more than 20 Texas A&M players that hit the transfer portal, um, which is just insane. This year, I think he caught 11 passes for 108 yards in 6 games. So didn't play a lot, but I mean he's a freshman, so I don't think you would expect him to play a lot. But he just, I guess, wasn't happy with his role in the offense there, and he joined that huge exodus for Texas A&M. So it's interesting to see what Texas A&M is going to do. They went from this all-time number one recruiting class to having but a lot of it starting to leave over the last couple of years. So any thoughts there at Texas A&M, and do you think they're going to be able to right this ship?
I don't think so. I think they're not going to be able to get this ship, sailing, perfectly again, just because they did a really, they recruited really well and got a lot of players, but it's, when if you look at their players, what they have like 5 recruits that were the same position. So you're going to lose a lot. And I think with how bad their season was this year, they're just going to keep losing players. I think players are kind of fed up with what's going on offensively and what's going on in just general at Texas A&M, and just the bad name behind Jimbo right now is not really helping the players there, and just the overall Texas A&M feel.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's jump into the transfer portal here. Again, we talked a little bit about this earlier this week in the podcast, so I'll try to go over maybe any new names here that have entered the portal, or anything, or any updates on the names we talked about last week. So Denver Harris, speaking of Texas A&M, he's listed as the number one player in the transfer portal rankings right now. He's a cornerback. He has a high 4-star ranking of 96. So really talented player. There's no current thoughts of where he can end up. If you look at his where he was recruited out of high school, let me see here. It was mostly Texas area teams, if I remember correctly. I don't see anybody again favored for him. Let me see. So I mean, yeah, your usuals, yeah, your Texases, your Alabamas, LSU's, Michigans, Notre Dames are all in on him. Um, when he was a recruit. Might some of that may change now depending on what teams need. Obviously, you would think Alabama would be involved because they have a really big need for wide receivers. Same thing with LSU and Texas. So interested to see where he goes. Well, quarterback, sorry. Interested to see where he goes. He's a still a true freshman. Age 19. So you're getting a young guy. Probably has 4 years eligibility left still. He probably only play 3 more years, maybe 2, depending on how he does performance wise. So interested to see how he does. Let me see. Looking for the list here, Jaheim Bell. We talked about him a little bit. He's the talented tight end out of South Carolina that played tight end, running back. He is now favored to go to Florida State, so that'd be an interesting fit there for him. Let me see if there's any other updates here. Dasan McCullough, we talked about him. He's the edge from Indiana. He visited Oklahoma this weekend. The favorite there is still going to Oklahoma. He is the son of the running back coach of Notre Dame, but I think there's some thought that he wants to not play for the same school his dad's at. There's also some rumors of him going to Ohio State, but it seems like he's kind of trending toward Oklahoma at this point. Ladarius Henderson, he's the inside offensive lineman. He committed to Michigan out of Arizona State, so he's one of the top offensive linemen. Michigan kind of reloads their offensive line a bit there with definitely a need there. Dante Cephas, we talked about him a bit. He's one of the top wide receivers, if not the top wide receiver, transferring from Kent State. There was a lot of teams in on him. You had everywhere from UCLA, the Notre Dame, the Penn State, and all the way around. He's been kind of crystal balled into Penn State. So it looks like Penn State will be able to reload for that Parker Washington loss and get Dante Cephas, it seems. See if there's any other predictions or updates. Nothing else in the top 20. Let's see if there's any latest that we maybe haven't talked about yet. Devin Price today, wide receiver from Texas A&M, is now in the portal. He was a 3-star out of high school. So we'll see if he'll be able to do any damage there. Let's see if anybody else prominent there. Let's see. Malik Lingham, he's a defensive lineman from Vanderbilt. He has 1 year left. He was a 4-star out of high school. It seemed like he played pretty well for Vanderbilt, so he's looking for probably this another splash before he goes to the NFL. So he should be a good pickup for someone there. And let me see if there's anybody else that stands out to me. There's a lot of names, a lot of 3 stars in the portal, which I think that's dangerous because just because you're not playing a lot here doesn't mean you're going to play a lot somewhere else. And so we read. So I'm sure everybody's seen the stats, but 50% of these folks that enter the transfer portal end up staying in the transfer portal or having to go to an FCS school or just get stuck not playing. So, any thoughts on those names I mentioned so far, Jordan?
No, no. I mean, I know we didn't talk. Coming out, I know the 8th of this month. JT Daniels entered the transfer portal again. I know yesterday or 2 days ago, the 9th. You got like pretty big names, a couple 4 stars, coming out, and I think that's normal. I think with if you're in a smaller school, you're not gonna get looked at. Players think you're not gonna get looked at, so they're transferring out. So just and the crazy thing is all over the board. It's not just one school getting a bunch of recruits. It's all over the board. It's kind of crazy to think right now. How and especially how many entered that first day of eligibility. It's so crazy, this transfer portal.
Yeah, for sure. I have some other names here as I'm kind of going for a list. So some of you may or may not know. So I have quarterback Mickey Keene from Central Florida. Um, he appeared to play really well in 11 games as a freshman in 2021 after quarterback Dylan Gabriel went down for season injury, but he really never materialized this season. I think he's probably looking for a place to kind of hopefully unlock that potential, get a fresh new start. He's from Arizona, so he could go back to like maybe Arizona State. I think Arizona State probably needs a quarterback. That might be a good fit for him there. Malik Hornsby from Arkansas. He's he's kind of got buried on the depth chart a bit. He could be a decent starting quarterback, I think. He had 57 pass attempts in his career, but I think maybe he's a group of 5 type guy. Go there, get a chance to play and show his potential. He has a strong arm, so I think if he can get in there with some talent around him, maybe one of those Florida schools, I think he might be able to do good there. So let's go for some other quarterbacks. We mentioned Brendan Armstrong, I think, from Virginia. No new news yet. I think the options out there are still maybe Notre Dame, Syracuse. Those are probably where he's looking at. Um, Austin Reed for Western Kentucky. He seems to be really talented. So he ranks second in passing yards and 4,200 yards, 36 touchdowns, and over 353 completions. So very talented guy. I've kind of seen that Oregon and UCLA have kind of put some feelers out to him. So I'm thinking maybe one of those schools might be where he ends up, especially with Bo Nix leaving Oregon. He might be a good fit to kind of step in right there for Oregon if he's be able to talented there. Another quarterback is Kyron Drones from Baylor. Um, we there's many that thought he was going to be the starter coming into next year, so it was a little surprise that he left. I think with where he's from and his kind of background, I think Georgia Tech might be a good fit for him, and there's been some feelers set out there as well. Speaking of Georgia Tech, Jeff Sims, a really talented quarterback. Maybe more with his running ability, but he has a strong arm. And I think teams that are interested are I think Indiana, Virginia Tech that can really use some athleticism in their quarterbacks there. Um, you know, I think maybe like a UCLA might even be an option because of his running ability and how that would fit into that system that they have there. Another one is Luke Altmaier from Ole Miss. Um, I think he just kind of see it right down the wall. He's not going to get an opportunity the next couple of years there at Ole Miss, so he wants to go somewhere where he could be like a day one starter. So no feelers out yet, but I think he was a highly talented recruit out of high school, so he should be able to get some playing time there. We talked about Hudson Carr a bit, but I think Notre Dame is kind of the one that's trending. We'll see if that's where he ends up. Let's check on DJ. I have not seen any follow up there beside that he was talking about UCLA, but his brother, who they were supposed to be a package deal, released his top three, and UCLA was not part of that top three. So we'll see where DJ ends up going. Whether he goes with his brother, goes his own route. Honestly, I think he might be better suited for like a group of five team right at the moment, just where he can guarantee starting and show his skills. Then we'll wrap up quarterback list here with Devin Leary. Um, he had a really successful campaign in North Carolina State. There's some teams out there. There's been rumors. Maybe Alabama, maybe Georgia, maybe Notre Dame. But there's some injury concerns. He hurt his shoulder. Um, he might not be ready for spring practice, and you're kind of depending on a guy to come in after spring practice and take this get team over, and you don't know how his injury is going to impact him. So there's been some um, people feeling like, should I take a chance on him? So that's out there. Illinois is a team that's kind of in the picture as well because his brother plays there, I believe. So that's another option for him. So any thoughts on those quarterbacks there, Jordan?
No, I think like most of those quarterbacks you named, besides a couple, can make a huge impact. I think Hudson Carr, I heard that he is starting the recruiting process once again with going to schools and doing all that again. I think that's a good choice for a lot of players, especially if you get in the transfer portal early. You have that time to go visit and see how you feel. It's like you're for a lot of players, it's like you're finding a new home again, and so you got to know how you feel when you go there. But you know, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the thing or in the transfer portal, but Devin Leary is a big name. Hudson Card. I think once you go down the list, besides Brendan Armstrong, who we've seen already compete and put up huge numbers, not a lot of trustworthy players out there right now. Do I get this transfer portal quarterback and put him in right away? And I don't know how 100% like DJ this year. We don't know what was up with DJ the last 2 years. Jeff Sims, we don't know 100% how he's going to play. A lot of these players, besides the couple that we've seen, have really good numbers in the school they were at, the Power Five school. But other than that, I think probably really noteworthy, and really we understand why they're leaving. Hudson Card is the second string behind Quinn Ewers, but Archie coming in, so you're what, you're going to be the third string at that point, so you're not going to hit the field really. So good
Yeah.
transfers, and I think a lot of we knew was going to happen kind of transfers.
Yeah, for sure. Like you sure point. I think some of these can go in and make an immediate impact if they run in the right school with the right system behind them. Uh, I honestly think like some of these guys can really help towards a playoff run or national championship, depending on the school. Because if some of these guys just need, hey, they might need a better offensive line in front of them. They might need better wide receivers. Thinking like Hudson Card, he said behind Quinn Ewers, and obviously he was named a starter at the beginning of the season, and then there was that back dealings that made Quinn Ewers the starter, and he saw how he played against Alabama and some other teams. He actually has the skills. He sees the opportunity. So, and like the Brendan Armstrong, he was just at a bad team this year, and you saw what he did last year with a better team around him. He did really well this year. He obviously didn't. So with that worst team around him, so he just needs a good team. Some of these guys really, it's all about the offensive lineman. Like I'm thinking, like some of these guys are getting killed on the offensive line. If they can just have protection, have time to throw the ball, they could probably do a lot better job. So, be interested to see where some of these guys end up. So, with that, I think that's my transfer portal updates. Anything from your end? Anybody else you've seen, Jordan, from your perspective?
Maybe a couple running backs. The biggest name I think right now in the running back portal is Ray Davis. I think he can make a huge impact on any team he has. He had 1,000 rushing yards this year on Vanderbilt. But other than that, I don't see, especially running backs. They're kind of limited and not the huge, um, like quarterback wise. But Ray Davis right now, in my eyes, is probably one of the top running backs right now that has shown he can compete in the Power Five conferences.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when I look at like the transfer portal itself, it looks like it's majority quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, and D lineman. Those are kind of are the prominent ones. Running back, it feels like man, everybody has running backs. It's hard. It's like the NFL. Like they're a dime a dozen. You just throw anybody in there and do your system, and it works. So I wonder. I think running backs might have trouble transferring in many cases, because those rooms are usually pretty good spot. But really interesting to watch that as well. It's gonna be interesting to kind of dissect this after spring practice and see what the teams actually look like. And going into next year when we do previews, man, that's gonna be a crapshoot because these teams are gonna be totally different. It's gonna be hard to preview a team we haven't seen and don't know how they're gonna be. So. That's going to be a lot of work for us, a lot of homework to do, but we look forward to doing that because it's going to be a cold winter until we get there. So, we can't wait to get back to college football season again. But yeah, we'll be back here over the next few weeks, previewing some of the bowl games, some of the bigger matchups. Again, if there's anything you guys want to watch or hear from us, know podcast.com. So, any closing thoughts from you?
No, nothing really. I just transfer portal is going to be crazy, and I think it's going to continue to be crazy. Just hearing all the new transfers and all the people that are gonna where they're gonna sign. It's gonna be a long couple weeks with bowl games and transfer portal and early signing days coming up. So it's gonna
Yep.
be a long couple weeks with bowl games and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey guys, we'll wrap this one up here. We're happy to bring you this Sunday podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it, whether you're listening to it today or on your drive to work tomorrow. Hope you enjoy. Again, if you follow along with us on In the Flat Pod on Twitter, In the Flat Podcast on our website, and we'll continue to bring you some good content. All right, talk to you soon, guys. Bye.